Greetings and salutations from the southern tropics of Michigan. I'm Jordan the IT guy, and today let's talk about hash tables in PowerShell. Now, a hash table, you might wonder, what in the world is that? Sounds a whole heck of a lot like hash browns. In fact, it's nothing like the sort. Instead, it is what is called a key value pair, and it gets organized very similarly to how a list works. It uses these objects inside of it that are called dictionary items, or an iDictionary item, in which a key and its value are established and stored. Now, you might be wondering, well, why would you use this over a list? Well, you might use this when you're trying to store hashes inside of a list. A hash table might be something you would store in a list, in fact. And there are other things that you might use in them as well, such as PowerShell objects and things like that. But at the end of the day, a hash table is one of the simplest data structures that you can use inside of PowerShell, and you can do a great number of things with them without having to learn some of the more advanced or tricky things like PS objects. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it and take a look at what this looks like. Let's start things off by creating a hash table. I'm going to start off by creating a hash table. It's going to be called dinner. I'm going to do dinner equals @ with two brackets on either side. This little @ right here, so you know, this is the delineator that indicates we want to create something that is a hash table. If I just run that, and if I do $dinner.get, oopsies, get type, and hit enter, we'll see that it is in fact of type hash table, and it has nothing inside of it. Now, this is all well and good, but, you know, what does that do for us? Well, we can add things to this hash table. So if we wanted to, we could do something like dinner.add. Let's do this. Protein, steak. What this will do is it will add a key value pairing into our object here that says, hey, we should add a key of value a key protein as a value of steak. So if I was to now do dinner, I hit enter, I would get name, protein, and a value of steak. Now, I didn't have to do an add here like this. I could have built this at the start when I first created the array. I could have done something like protein equals steak. And I could have done something as well like starch equals French fries. And I could have added one more just because. Now if I was to highlight and run this, I would again get that hash table, but this time it would have a value, a key of starch, a key of protein, and a key of vegetables, and associated values. What's convenient about this inside of PowerShell is that I could go into any one of these keys, such as protein, and I can retrieve its value. Now, what if this contains something like a bunch of different records? For example, let's say that we had cereal, and an instance of cereal is going to contain its name. In this case, it's going to be Captain Crunch. And it's going to have calories. I don't know how many calories Captain Crunch has, but let's say it's 200 calories in it. Yeah. Now, what's interesting about this is that I now have a tiny object here, right? Essentially, because everything in PowerShell is objects, that contains the name of a cereal. It's called Captain Crunch. And a set of calories, 200. Now, this is a nondescript object, doesn't have any real properties necessarily associated with it or anything like that. Well, I can do all kinds of things like this. I could add a bunch of cereals to a list if I wanted to. And I could then take their calories and add them together and do all sorts of things along the way. Now, where this gets complicated is when you want to add depth to this information. Let's say that you wanted to have another thing like this. So you wanted to have another cereal, right? Something like maybe Golden Grams. Now, if you were to try to run this, it's going to yell at you because you can't have duplicate keys. So if you wanted to add depth, or if you wanted to have multiple instances inside of this, this would not work the way that you would expect it to. And instead, you would need to start looking at something like adding hashes to a list and recreating them in a programmatic fashion, using custom objects, or various other things. Next week, we'll chat a little bit more about PowerShell custom objects and what I'm talking about with that and how we might programmatically generate hashes or objects along the way and store them in a list. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thanks for watching.